here's content we probably should be creating. Same with product. Here are what our customers are asking for. So being able to kind of create this feedback loop from your customers to scale that's objective, right, kind of takes the burden off a given CSM to constantly be feeding back this insights to kind of almost giving them superpowers to always be in the know about everything. So now kind of looking at this more holistically, across the board, we're seeing really positive lifts across the entire go-to-market ecosystem, right? Anything from velocity and win rate increases from sale, campaign ROI from marketing, influence pipeline, open pipeline, size of pipeline for BD and partnerships, churn reduction in CS, and just faster forecasting, better operating cadences for RevOps. So now we're going to move into some tangible examples. So first, we're going to look at a few challenges, how AI has played into helping solve those challenges, and then the outcomes they drove, right? So for example, a situation could be we want to extract actionable insights from customer conversations for product development, right? What AI is able to do is then continuously analyze all of your interactions, gather feedback, gather competitive intelligence, feature requests, right? And build that into one holistic report on an ongoing basis. So for product, what this then unlocks is you're way more aligned on the roadmap itself because you can objectively say, here's what matters most today, and here's actually the revenue linked to each of these, features that we have on our roadmap. So the time to build actually increases significantly because alignment, happens almost 50% more efficiently. Next, we're going to look at kind of preventing deals from slipping through the cracks. I think when you're working deals, it's really complex to actually understand the right risk because someone might say that pricing is the risk to this deal, but it might not actually be a pricing risk. It could be a value risk, right? That might mean that the seller actually didn't do a good job of portraying the right value for the price they delivered. So it can be that the organization might have the right budget to pay for the price we delivered. They just don't see the value. So when a rep says, hey, the risk here is price, we don't actually know the understanding why behind that price, which AI can help understand. So being able to surface the right risks and why those risks are the risks and how to solve for them has totally transformed how sales teams are now operating and thinking about managing their pipeline today, right? And we've seen the lost deal rate decrease by almost 25%, and teams starting to win a lot more because they can proactively flag why they might actually lose ahead of time. And I think that plays really nicely into forecasting, right? Like, how do we actually get this objective view of where this opportunity stands? But also, how does that relate back to our business specifically? Every company is built differently, and everyone has their own nuance of what makes a good opportunity for us. Maybe you sell to retail stores, right? So the amount of locations that a given organization has is really valuable. So we should be scoring the health of our opportunities, off of how many locations, right? There's all of these variables that we work in our deals that ultimately end up adding up to, is this a good opportunity for us? Is this one we should be spending our time on? And should this be one that we're winning, right? So ultimately what we're seeing with that is forecasting accuracy starting to increase by 30% because we're getting objective insights that are relevant to our business about the opportunity and really giving our leaders a command center to understand what's going well and what's not. So kind of starting with that for that one as an example, right, is leaders really start to lack confidence in their forecast, right? There's a lot of gaps that go into forecasting in the old world where you're very reliant on the sales rep to say, hey, this is the stage that my opportunity is in. And then there's a probability assigned to that. So first off, we're just hoping that our AEs are putting the opportunities in the right stage. And then traditionally, right, we're seeing forecasting calls where AEs are going to try and validate and say, hey, here's why this is in this stage. Here's why it might close. But as we all know, right, that is extremely subjective. We don't know if what the AE is saying is 100% truthful. They might be trying to inflate their pipeline. They might not be seeing things, right, the way that our organization actually views our playbook, right? So to be able to really layer in your own intelligence into AI agents, to then get the scoring mechanism to say, objectively, this is what stage this opportunity is in. Here's why. Here are medpic notes. Here are scores. This allows the sales leader with confidence to say, yes, I feel good forecasting this deal for this quarter. We're actively having conversations. In those conversations, they're showing the right buying signals, right? They have the right archetype of a good opportunity for us. This is actually a deal I feel comfortable forecasting. And that's all served up for them that they can see without them having to go and call the rep, ask a million questions, and try to actually figure out the root of where we stand on this opportunity. Example two is kind of around marketing messaging, right? I think we hear a lot is that there tends to be a ton of a huge iteration curve for marketers to really start to resonate with prospects, right? So kind of the traditional approach was marketing would create content, sales would adapt to it, they would give feedback back to marketing and continuously try to iterate. But in today's world, you can really just lean on agents to serve up to you, right, the right content or the right messaging that will resonate with most of your prospects to scale today and implement that a lot faster. Like, what is our winning language from actual prospect interactions, right? That is going to lead to our content and our messaging converting at a lot higher level, right? Your best messaging already exists today in your thousands and thousands of conversations you're having with your prospects and with your customers, right? It's just how do we actually mine that data to scale in an efficient way and then allows us to utilize that in content. And then kind of on that same theme is for business development teams is how do we increase our response rate? I think in today's day and age, this is like one of the biggest problems I'm hearing in the market is top of funnel response rates are at an all-time low. And inboxes are busier than ever. So how do we stand out? Right? And in my opinion, how you stand out is being relevant and being in someone's inbox at the right time, right? Because everyone's getting hundreds and hundreds of emails. So very, very rarely do you get the attention of an executive to respond. Um, and what we're seeing is actually leveraging your interactions is the best way to do so, right? The old school approach was using kind of third-party data and really trying to come up with your own custom messaging and trying a bunch of different things and seeing what's sticking. I think what you can see today is that it's a lot easier to do personalization at scale, but it's really easy to do that wrong, right? If you're relying just on LinkedIn pages and organizational websites. Today's world, you should be really tapping into what are our prospects saying? What is that one or two things of why people continuously come to talk to us? How do we harness that information and then turn that back into a top of funnel machine that we're actually getting the right messaging in front of the right people? So AI can dissect all of your interactions and say, when you talk to RevOps, here's the number one thing that's most important. When you talk to product teams, here's the number one thing that's most important. When you talk to marketing teams, this is the number one thing that's most important, right? So AI allows you to really stand out and be way more relevant in people's inboxes. At the end of the day, I think ultimately where AI is helping us push towards is really creating this more collaborative loop. Um, right? As we've talked about a lot, conversations fuel a lot of continuous improvement from customer interactions to agents capturing the insights to then enabling the team to act more effectively and a lot faster. And then that leads to better conversational flow. Um, I do think there's obviously huge opportunity to still keep humans in the loop, right? Humans, especially when you're thinking about more middle market enterprise sales, I think relationships are more important than ever. I encourage my team on a daily basis to get in person, go meet our prospects. That is one of the biggest levers I think people are forgetting today, that in today's world, people are still selling to people. Maybe down the road, there's a world where AI is selling to AI, but today people are still selling to people. You need to build a relationship, right? We also need to introduce the right strategy. We need to be listening to our prospects. We need to be curious about their business. We need to understand their pain, their needs, and we need to build a strategy together with our prospects, with our champions, to really work together to see where is the opportunity for us to help and how do we move this deal forward, right? And you always just want to be able to show empathy to your prospects, right? And make sure that you're listening and hearing their perspective and where they're coming from. That being said, there is also a world where you then introduce agents into this human buying process that then really helps supercharge you, right? From processing information to automating certain execution and giving you the right intelligence at scale. So overall, kind of the big takeaway is that revenue agents are really unifying your company together in a very, very customer-centric way. Every team is now able to see the truth. All of these actions are happening faster. And every single conversation you have is making your system smarter for the next insight you have, right? So for every interaction, we're going to get better insights. And then for every better insight, we're going to get better actions. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you listening. Would love to hear if there's any questions. Looking into the chat. Does attention work in an in-person environment? Yes, it does. So we actually have a mobile app that you can go in person, press record, analyze the interactions, feed that back into attention. It can then properly map to the right account, opportunity, and then use that data to help show insights. Any other questions? So from a consent perspective, typically, yes. What we're seeing a lot of the time is that just recording a conversation has become so popular. So just having like your note taker in the conversation, people inherently know they're being recorded. If you do want to ask for consent, or if you're going in person, kind of the best talk tracks we see is just saying, hey, like I want to be present in this meeting. Is it cool if my AI takes notes for me so I don't have to? Right. And we see that in today's world resonate really, really well. Awesome. I think that is all the questions in the chat, unless Amy, you think I'm missing anything.
Thank you, Jacob. Great presentation. Yeah, not seeing any other questions in Q&A, but we've got 15 minutes left here before the next session starts. So if there are other questions, we welcome you all to chat those in or put them in the Q&A, and we'd be glad to hang tight and answer those for everyone.
Yeah, I'm happy to show like a real life example of kind of how we're leveraging agents internally. If people think that's interesting. Awesome. Let me see. It's actually not letting me share my full screen. Hold on 1 second. Stop sharing this. Cool. So this is one example of how we use agents. Um, we have two approaches to agents internally is automatically being surfaced insights. So these autonomous agents, and then more research agents where we can go interact with and ask questions, right? So this example, right, we're asking our agents to go and identify our fastest velocity deals with the highest ACVs and what made them buy so fast. We ask them to look into pain points, firmographics, technographics, right? And maybe anything that we're not thinking about. What's really powerful here is that this agent is linked up to multiple systems, right? It's linked up to Salesforce, it's linked up to our email, it's linked into our conversations. And then what it's able to say to us is that here are, the critical pain patterns that we're seeing. We're seeing that the messy CRM and no process, right, is a great starter for us. When people have very messy CRMs, they're moving very quickly. We lost middle management crisis, right? What we're seeing here is that people aren't able to coach more efficiently anymore. We're starting to see a decrease in middle managers, and that's starting to hurt from a coaching perspective. And then the manual hell problem that AI calls it, right? Reps are just so bogged down every day that it is really, really hard to actually focus on revenue. So these are really clear things that we can use in our messaging. It then gives us good titles to work, technographic signals, firmographic signals, the buy now triggers, things we're not thinking about, right? So this becomes really powerful because you can ask us a whole slew of different types of questions. I use this all the time for close won and close lost, right? I'll say, hey, analyze our last close lost deals for the past month, flag the ones that are primed for re-engagement, and give me the top reasons, right, why we lost those opportunities. Attention can go in, find that information, and surface that for us. So this is more on kind of the research component. I'll show you one that's more flagging. Just give me 1 second to pull it up. Right? And this could be a churn risk alert, right? This is a weekly churn risk report that can analyze all of your customer conversations for a given week, right? And then really break down for you, why are these companies at risk? This is flagging, decline in activity. This is your last touch, right? And really understanding what's happening in the interactions as well to show high risk, medium risk, and happy customers based on all of the different actions that you have, right? It's combining Salesforce records, conversations, activities to really give this kind of holistic view. And in today's world, actually building and deploying these agents are faster than ever. To create a churn risk alert agent in attention, all you have to do is go into our agent builder, say in natural language, I want to once a week analyze all of our customer calls and flag churn risk to me via Slack, hit enter, AI builds that agent for you, and then once a week, you are getting served that information. So the speed in which it takes to deploy agents today is so fast that we're seeing so many of our customers have 50, 60, 70 different types of agents running, helping power their business. Let me see, go through the chat to see if there's any.
I think we've got a question there on the SMB process as a separate enterprise process at the same firm from Dan.
So how do you suggest to set up agents where there is an SMB process? Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And that's why we kind of taken this approach that like one size doesn't fit all. There's so much nuance at a business from either just enterprise and SMB. So I would say from an SMB perspective is really kind of understanding what's most important. Those sales tend to be a lot more higher velocity, right? So when creating your agents, it's thinking about what are the things that are unique to our sales process or sales cycle that the agent should take into account, right? So I think you probably want to set up your agent to have higher frequency of alerting, right? Because your sales cycles are going to be a lot shorter. So you maybe want daily deal risk instead of weekly deal risk, right? And just kind of embedding your own variables that make SMB unique to your business for that, right? So I think what's so powerful about agents today is that you can continuously feed it context. Like we allow our agents to be given documents and playbooks as like an operating procedure, right? So if I wouldn't recommend creating a deal risk agent that is just used for the entire company, right? Each team, like the SMB team, should have their own unique deal risk agent that's been given the proper context of what SMB means for your business to make sure it's servicing the right risks. Because the deal risks you're going to see in SMB are obviously going to be very different than the deal risks you see in enterprise.
We have another question here, Jacob. Can you build your agent based on any criteria that exist in your CRM?
Yes, you can. So we allow the agents, we have over 200 integrations, and it can read any custom object in your CRM and pretty much anything in your CRM. So when you're building your agent, sorry, you can just give it the proper guardrails of what fields to read. Or we've almost gotten to a point where AI is smart enough. We call it tool use, where you just give it a prompt in the operating procedure and it knows how to navigate the different data sets to pull the right data.
Awesome. Well, we have hit the 5-minute remaining mark. So if there are any other questions from the group, we'd love to get those in now so we can get them answered for you. All right, here's one. What type of AI models do you prefer to use?
Yeah, so our team is constantly testing the different models. And I think today what we have found is that it's the two big ones, right? It's OpenAI, it's Anthropic. We found the newest model from Claude today to be one of the stronger ones. But it's a constant game of trying to benchmark and figure out which is the best. Conversational data is really unstructured. So there's a lot of nuance when deciding which model to pick. Right now, we think Anthropic and the most recent Claude model is like beyond stellar.
Definitely depends on the job to be done, right? Picking the right agent to align with what you're trying to do.
100%.
Okay, I think we're at the last couple minutes. Any other questions from the group? Let's hear them. See them in the chat.
So why AI SDRs? I think there's a lot of reasons. I think ultimately, like to me, what happened was they became too viral too early. I don't know if the models were good enough yet. And at the end of the day, like startups are still startups. There's only so much you can build. So like the early V1 of AI SDRs was basically just running a prompt over someone's website and then trying to find buyers. And it led to very, very messy emails and like spamming TAMs way too quickly. And then I think everyone got a really, really bad taste in their mouth because this went super viral. Everyone tried them at the same time. I think over time they've gotten a bit better, but it's still such a hard problem to solve because getting the right messaging to the right people is just so hard. And I think third party signals is really hard. I think it's really hard to predict when someone is in the market. Like website visitors, champion tracking, all of those things are like directionally helpful. I don't necessarily think it's like the strongest correlation into actually booking the meeting. So to me, it was just relying on the wrong data sets from a company website, third-party signals, and just pushing out too much volume and not taking into account the data sets that actually matter is kind of my thought on why you saw kind of failure. I think there's starting to be a little bit of a course correction and people are thinking about it in the right ways and kind of taking a step back. But it's a really, really hard space to get right.
All
Awesome.
right. I think we're at the wrap up moment. Thanks so much, Jacob. Awesome presentation. Great chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to be here.